Welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Outlook in the DeFi Dojo. Today is January 26th. We are nearing the end of the month. Trump is now in office. We got tariffs everywhere, and the markets don't know what to do with themselves. Looking at USDT dominance, for those who are unfamiliar, we monitor this chart because as stablecoin dominance rises, crypto markets fall, and as stablecoin dominance falls, crypto markets rise. Looking at the daily chart here, yesterday's candle closed above both EMAs after starting below them. And when we see things like this is a pretty bullish move. So when you start below and you close above both of them, and the EMAs are not bullish yet, it could be the start of something bullish. So we may have a few days at the very least of some bearish times ahead in crypto. Maybe this will help you DCA or what have you, but in the near term, we could see this come back up towards the pivot at 4.21%. You can see we've been basically sideways since, November. So not much has happened. Could this be like a double bottom on this chart just under the all-time trend line, which is that white line that you see there? I don't know. Could this be the Pico bottom of this chart? Again, I don't know. There is some bullish divergence here, which I don't like. Again, this is the daily. If I go to the weekly, you'll see it as well. So you can see that this is clearly trending down, right? That's a lower low. And our RSI and our MACD are trending higher. So this right now is showing me that we could be near a bottom here on USDT dominance. I have since consolidated my altcoins into primarily ETH and SOL in the hopes that there is still an alt season ahead of us. Now, when we look at the altcoin market, I'm measuring it using total 3 divided by Bitcoin. And this tells me how altcoins are doing against Bitcoin itself. And we've been sitting on top of this macro support here for, I don't know, what is this, like 2 months now? And we've just made a lower high, and now we're kind of starting to come down again. So I don't really like that. We didn't close below. If we zoom in here, you'll see we definitely stayed above on the close, which is what I was watching going into the weekly close. So as long as we stay closed above this line, which we have now for 4 weeks, I'm gonna hold on to hope and think that we could still have an alt season. Now, if we close a candle below this, then all this becomes is a strong downtrend signal because we have not broken the 382 on the macro scale. And I simply measured the last high to our current low. And if we are rejecting that 382 and going down here and breaking back down below the 236 in this weekly pivot, then that just means that the probabilities of this being a downtrend on a macro scale increase significantly. And at that point, I will just dump everything and just wait. But because we closed above, I'm going to give it another week. It doesn't look great, I will be honest. Looking at total crypto market cap, however, things are still just fine. I mean, we're holding the 8 EMA on the weekly. And then if we look at USDT on the weekly, we are still below the 8 EMA. So it's not all bad news. We're just consolidating sideways after a massive move from Bitcoin. We're having a hard time breaking above the 1.272. And this is what I want to show you today. I went back and I looked at every previous bear market, and I measured each one and left all the fibs on the chart to see what I would get. And when I did that, every single, and there's 4 of them, if you stretch all the way back, every single one had a fib right here. There's 4 fibs in here. And if I zoom out, let me see if I can go to like the monthly so you can see all this. And I know there's a lot of lines. Let me get this freaking thing out of here. But basically, I took and measured every bear market starting with the first cycle. So I measured that top to that bottom, and that gives me a mark right here, right? So that's like right around the 120 mark. And then I measured the next one, which was from here to here. You see those dots. And then that gave me a mark in the same exact location, and then so on and so forth. I measured every bear market, and every single one gave me a mark right in this like 125 to 130K mark. And if I zoom in, you'll see them all. So see, all 4 of them are all right here. So kind of tells me we probably have one more leg up, right? And we can get to this 125 to 130 mark on Bitcoin. Now, usually we have an alt season somewhere between now and the top. And we've yet to see it really start happening. Now, some altcoins have done really well. Meme coins did really well for a while. They're no longer doing that great, and we have these like blips of projects that come through, like virtuals, and it goes from like stupid low to $5, and now retraced 50% and is kind of hovering. And then we have other projects that kind of do the same thing. They grow real fast, and then they kind of fizzle out and don't return again. And right now there's so many altcoins in the market, and that the argument is, oh, the market's too diluted and there's not enough money to go around them all, and therefore the alt season's kind of just fizzling out. We might not get one. It's a fair point. It absolutely could be true. I don't know. I really don't. All I know is that the total market cap is still bullish, and the altcoin market compared to Bitcoin is still holding that support. So picking the altcoins that are doing well and dumping the ones that are not is probably a good idea right now. So let's give an example. So if we go to Sol is still bullish on the weekly. It still could come all the way down to 223 here and hit the 8 EMA and then bounce right back up again. It could totally do that. Like, it's still bullish. But if we look at something like TON and we zoom in and look at its EMAs, so I just got rid of this one because I don't like how we're continuously bearish and rejecting that 8 EMA over and over again. We now just closed 2 candles below the weekly pivot. So I don't like that. I would rather put my money somewhere else. We have a lower high and now potentially coming a lower low. And so if this is what your altcoin looks like, then it might be time to move on and find something different. You can also see we hit the macro 1.618 from its original launch, and that makes sense, right? Like, I don't really want to mess with that unless it breaks back over the 1.618 and it's like a mile away from there. Let's look at Link. So I'm still holding Link, but that's because the EMAs are still bullish, right? And we're still holding above the 8 EMA. This is quite a different chart than the one we just looked at, right? So this is kind of what, and I know there's a lot of lines here, but these are for my own markings on what I've done myself so I can keep track. But I did buy more back up here after taking profits, and then I was like, okay, it's still bullish, I'm going to hold on. So I am still holding a majority of my Link tokens from $8, and I'm happy holding those. Hopefully we can get up and get above the 786, but if it starts crashing as well and we start breaking back down below, you know, the weekly pivot down here at $20, then I'm going to start dumping as well, and that's just the way that it is. If we look at AVAX, I'm still holding AVAX, even though it is below the EMAs. The EMAs are still technically bullish. And let me remove that. You know, we had a nice leverage trade on that, 2 months ago, where we took it from the 0.5 to the 618 and made some decent gains. But, that's what these markets are for, is for trading, making some money, getting in, getting out. And if the chart says get out, then it's time to get out. It closed just barely over this mark that I've been watching. So as long as we hold over 35.58 on the weekly scale, I'm still a holder. Let's look at AIOZ. This was another one that I got faked out on. It kind of, popped back up again, and I was upset that I sold low, but really it's still just in a downtrend. So until we break that flag there, I'm not getting back in, and it's still quite a ways away from that. Had a nice pop today, but really kind of stayed down under $1 still and finished in between the EMAs. If your token is in between the EMAs, that is called the no trade zone. That is not something you want to try to trade long or short. It is still a hold if the 8 EMA, which is my orange line, is above the 21 EMA, which is my purple line on the weekly chart. That is what you want to look for. If we look at Algo, still bullish. If we look at Ape, turning bearish now. Don't want this one, right? So we can start to separate our altcoins from good and bad. The market's flooded with them, and we need a way to filter what's good and what's not, right? And this is how you should be filtering them with your weekly 8 EMA and 21 EMAs. Let's see, Atom starting to turn bearish. It's not yet crossed. Could recover this week, we'll see, but below the 0.5, it's kind of like eh. So maybe we want to start hedging our portfolios with shorting the weak and holding spot the long. And that's kind of what I'm starting to potentially look forward to. The problem is when total market cap is still bullish and we start trying to short altcoins and this chart here is still holding macro support, it's kind of like, like it's a little risky. I don't know if I want to do that just yet, but we are kind of close to being at that point. Let's see, let's go to Bitcoin itself. And we got a higher weekly candle than last week, but again, we're just having a hard time getting over that 1.272. Now, I want to show you why I think we could top in this range at the 1.414, 125 to 130 level, even though it looks like a lot of people are calling for much, much higher. And I'm going to show you the regression now. And to do that, I'm going to open up a new chart. And I'm going to go to, where's Chart School? Chart School, there it is. And we're going to do Bitcoin index. And we're going to clear all. Make sure we're in log mode. And we're on the weekly, so we're going to zoom all the way out. All right. So if we measure this bear market, for example, from the top to the bottom, you can see we topped out at the 2.272, which is this green number right here, right? I also want to point out that if we come up here, we have the 4 at exactly 130. Okay, so now I'm going to close that, and I'm going to measure the next bear market, which is this one right here. So here, where do we top? Once again, the top is the 2.272, that green number right there. So far, these two successive bull markets have had the same strength, going to the 2.272. Oh, I also want to point out 127 is the 3.272. So these numbers are all falling in between that 125 to 130 level that I was talking about earlier. So now I'm going to measure the next one. So that's from this top to this bottom. So we'll go here to here. And you'll see this time we did not get to the 2.272. This time we went to the 1.618. So we just got successively weaker, right? This bull market did not go to where the last two went. So it went from this one to this one. So now if we measure this bear market, and if we are going to have like a succession of weaker bull markets, then we go from that top to that bottom. That's where I get the 1.272 right now at 103, right? And notice that 127 is the 1.414. And so if we are receding, then it makes sense that we could top at this level, because it would be one fib level less than the 1.618, if that makes sense. So just some things I'm seeing. If we bring in the RSI into here and the MACD, the MACD is not divergent because this is higher than this one, but the RSI is. So we're already seeing some divergence here on the weekly, and it's bearish divergence because this is pointed down while this is pointed up. So even though our price got higher, our momentum got weaker. Okay? Now, markets can stay that way for a while. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's a top, but it did here. Absolutely did here. Like you can clearly see both the MACD and the RSI were pointed down at the top of this bull market, and this is clearly pointing up in the same time frame. So that's what helped me see the top of that market, and perhaps starting to show us that we're getting close to the top of this one. Now, we could see this move go, off the 8 EMA here and come up here and hit this mark, while the RSI just kind of comes up and hits that mark and then decides to head back down. And I'll make that bigger so you can see it. So if you see that is what's possible, and unless this trend line on the RSI breaks, then this will remain bearishly divergent, and we can say we're getting close to the top of this market. I have had March as the top of my market since I bought Bitcoin at 16K in October of 2022. And if we go here, I don't have this chart ready yet. Oh, that's not it. This one. You can see why, and I've shared this several times, but this is where I've had the top of my market for a long time. 2 years now is where I thought this was going. It also coincides with the trend line, and maybe we see 170. I don't know. I want to break 130 first before I can start calling 170. But really, before any of that, we need to break 106.3 on a weekly scale before we can even say that that's going to happen. So right now we're stuck at the beginning of our take profit zone, and it doesn't have to continue into it. It could be that's it. So, take that for what it's worth. And if you're in profits on something in crypto, especially like super heavy profits, like just take them, like to make your money. And if things break your level again, then fine, hop back in with some and try to ride it to the next level. But we're, in my opinion, in a market now where gains are going to be tough. And this year is likely going to be very tough. I sold most of my equities, and sure, we bounced off the 1.618 here, but we still haven't gotten any higher really since the beginning of December. We've got 2 months now of sideways, and this market could very well be starting to distribute where we're just going to see sideways action for a while. And if we fail to and go back below this 1.618 on the S&P, then I think it's probably game over for a while. And I'm going to go into hiding and just stack cash and make money short scalping things. So I do look forward to that. I do make quite a bit in the bear markets, and I do like bear markets just as much as I do bull markets because there's money to make both ways. You just can't have a bias towards anything. You have to just listen to the charts and do what they tell you. I don't really care much of what Trump's doing when it comes to markets, or what anybody's really doing worldwide when it comes to markets and the news and narratives and so on and so forth. I just listen to what the charts tell me to do, and I do very well that way, and I don't have to worry about all the noise and speculating and on all that jazz. But I do miss out on some things, right? Like I miss out on meme coin runs and whatever else there might be that's like the hype today that's gone again tomorrow. But I'm okay with that. I do much better in the long run. So with that, let's look at the NASDAQ. So the NASDAQ couldn't get back up to the 1.618. We're kind of just trading around in these daily pivot range. We did break the flag. Perhaps it wants to come back for a retest here. We'll see what happens if that happens this week, if we get a bounce or not, or if we just dive back down. If we dive back down, then this is looking like a distribution, right? Like we got all these humps happening here, and we might have our first lower high. Perhaps we have to wait and see. If we look at the dollar, it did break back down below our macro, 0.5, but it's by no means bearish. This didn't even give us divergence here, right? That's a higher high. That's still higher. So this could still just be oscillating around the 0.5 before it tries to make a move higher. We'll have to wait and see. And so that pretty much covers it. Not much is different in crypto this week than last week. On the weekly, we got a doji candle, so we finished exactly in the same place as we opened. And now we're trying to come back and retest this 8 EMA. We'll see. We could come back up to test the trend line again and just stay in this freaking range for 2 months, which is annoying. So I'm de-risking a little bit and consolidating into stronger coins, letting go of the ones that look weak, and moving on from there. If we have any chart requests, I'll be glad to take them now. If you'd like to drop them in the chat, we can cover them here. Anyone? Going once, going twice? Chart requests? Usually by the time I start saying I'm about to leave, people start typing. So I'll wait a second. But I think you guys should have, if you've been here a while, every ability to put those EMAs on your chart and see what they look like on the weekly. And you'll be able to make that call yourself. All right. I guess no one's going to chart requests, so I will post the weekly recording in the Weekly Outlook channel. And if I see anything worthwhile that looks like we can try to trade, at least hold it for a day, I'll post it. But right now, all you can really get away with is scalping, and that's even tough because Even the hourly charts are basically just doing this, sideways for a really long time. Maybe we got some moves now we can short, but I don't know. I don't like shorting a bull market. So, all right. Have a good one. I'll see y'all in the Discord. Bye.